Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third, presented by CarMax, the way car buying should be. Alongside Darian Jenkins and Christine Cupo, I'm Lisa Carlin. Today we have a huge Olympics preview episode for you all. Sandra Herrera is back. She's going to give us her hot takes and picks for the Olympics. And of course, we'll run through the latest news, but it is officially Olympics week. The 2024 Paris Olympics opening ceremony is this week. We get our first look at the women's soccer matches that are to come. But the Summer Olympics bring a lot of excitement, and it got me thinking, if you two were not to be soccer players at the Olympics and you can compete in any other event, which event would you be competing in at the Olympics?
Ooh, track. It's familiar terrain.
But what event?
So
Darian's like, we need to know your splits.
Yeah, I was always too short, unfortunately, to really efficiently do hurdles, but I did the 400 meter, the 200, and 55. So some indoor, some outdoor. So as long as it's a short sprint and like grueling enough, I can probably still hack it. I don't know. My coach is probably going to find this and be like, bet.
I like that. All right, a sprinter for the track and field events. I like it. What about you, Dee?
I was also going to say track. I loved hurdles, loved the 1 and the 2, would absolutely do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I really like...
High jumper?
I never did high jump. I don't know why, but if I could really pick what I would want to do, if I had the skill set, I would do gymnastics.
Yeah, that would be
Gymnastics is so much fun. Like, I'm actually, not that everything isn't impressive, but I feel like gymnastics is like another level of, I could never, so to me, it's like incomprehensible.
Yeah.
It defies gravity, physics, laws of logic.
So Darian, if you were a gymnast, between the floor routine, the pole vault, or the vault, the balance beam, which event would be your specialty?
I like to dance. I would be on the floor. I'd be flipping around. Beyonce would be in the background. A little Rihanna. I don't know. Yeah, that would be.
She's already got her mashup ready. She's like, we're gonna do Beyonce, transitioning into
100%. Meg Thee Stallion will be in there.
What track? What are you starting with?
Maybe Honey Buckin'.
Okay.
Maybe we'd start there.
I like that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Carlin?
So potentially track and field. That would be like the one I could actually compete in. I would do the long jump. I could also sprint. I could do distance. I'm an all-around.
She can do it all.
But the one that I would want to do that I absolutely cannot is diving. So cool.
I thought about that too. It's crazy.
Cool. I feel like the fact that we all in track and field, like I should change mine. Like I could go swimming. I could go swimming.
I can't compete anymore.
No, I'm like, forget it. I'm going to go into a different Olympics entirely.
Honestly, the good news is that none of us have to compete at any of these events coming up in Paris this summer. But one player that does is Gabrielle Carl, Canadian international defender. She has been called up to the full Olympic squad for the reigning gold medalist. This comes after a bit of injury news from defender Sydney Collins has been removed from the roster following a fracture in her left leg. That happened Thursday in a closed-door friendly versus Nigeria. So Washington Spirit defender Gabrielle Carl will replace Collins. Carl has 46 caps, and she was a member of that gold medal winning side at Tokyo 2020. And in addition to that, veteran midfielder Desiree Scott will replace Gabrielle Carl as an alternate. So this is a reigning gold medal team that is looking to defend their title. Darian, how does this defensive shift on the roster change the outcome for Canada?
Obviously heartbreaking for Sydney Collins to miss out on the Olympics. Injury, this happens leading up to the Olympics. This isn't the only news we're going to be talking about here, obviously. But I do think Gabby Carl really deserves this. She's a player that when the roster first came out, we were surprised she didn't make the 18. So I'm really happy for her. I think she's done well with the Spirit. She had a really good W Gold Cup. Looks really effective defensively and in the attack with this new formation that Canada's playing under Bev Priestman. And also, my girl, Desi Scott, the destroyer, so decorated for Canada and in the NWSL, getting called up as an alternate. I think it's really good to have that veteran presence. And if you guys know Desi, she is a ball of sunshine and positivity and leadership. I think is going to be key for them to have in this tournament because it is so heavy hitting and they got a big target on their backs.
Yeah, I think this Canada squad also has a really solid mix of just veterans, if we'll call it that, because obviously many of these, like max you're going to get is maybe their third Olympic appearance, but also those making their debut. Just the extra oomph of knowing that you're getting called in, pressure, but excitement, where it's like, okay, now I need to seize this opportunity, which will probably cause some pressure for good things, Pressure makes diamonds.
It always does. And Gabrielle Carl is a really effective defender. defender. She's good on both sides of the ball. She can contribute in the attack for Canada and whip those crosses in and long balls. It's an asset to have her now on the full 18, in my opinion. And then, as you mentioned, Darian, Desiree Scott being called up, she just adds such a presence in the locker room for this Canadian side. Unfortunately, that is not the only injury news to come. Nigeria and their Olympic roster also has some changes. Forward Ifeoma Anamanu has been pulled up to the full 18-player roster. She's a Utah Royals forward, and she was initially named as an alternate, but now has been elevated after midfielder Halimat Ayinde was forced out of play due to an injury. So now there's another addition of Anamanu. For you, Darian, what does Anamanu add to this Nigerian side?
My girl, Ify, congrats. She adds a lot of veteran experience. She can play all across the front line. I think she's also one of the best defensive forwards where she can help this team so much, which this is a really tight tournament. The games are back to back to back. You need players that can cover ground quickly, that are good in the attack and in defense. So I think she brings a lot there. And she's coming off of an injury and has some minutes. She looks dangerous with the Royals. So I think this is a really good place for her to come into this team and help them, knock some teams out. I think be a little bit of the dark horse in this tournament.
Yeah, a lot of potential there for this Nigerian side.
Absolutely. Deserving of a spot for sure. I think that we haven't seen her be her greatest yet for Utah, just given the way that things been just in a state of unrest in NWSL for them. But spotlight on her. Right?
Yeah, love it.
Time to go.
Excited to see. It's crazy that it is just around the corner. We talked last week about German midfielder Lena Oberdorf, who suffered a torn ACL and MCL. She has been removed from the Olympics roster for Germany, but she has been replaced by Janina Minga, midfielder out of SC Freiburg. And then Pia Sophie Walter will become an alternate for the German side. For Minga coming into this roster to replace Oberdorf, it is a very tall task to ask to replace Oberdorf, but what does Minga add to this roster?
Minga will, I'd say, be an Oberdorf light, right? If Oberdorf is the quintessential gold standard midfielder, and she brings so much, right? She doesn't have a weak foot. She's great at creating these short, decisive passes, progressing play, but just doing double duty. She just great read, even if she does nothing else. I think Minga can bring a bit of that. I think that she'll probably add a lot more to the attack than defensively, but she's got a big, big, big ask of her. I think, she came over to Wolfsburg from Freiburg for the purpose of kind of being Oberdorf's, I'd say, understudy, right? Because, Oberdorf is very hard to try to get her out of her position. But I don't know. I think Germany are still going to be a favorite. I just think that it's going to be a little bit of a tougher task without the midfield being 100%.
I think it's going to ask other players on Germany's midfield team to step up. I think Nuskin's one who's going to have, I think, more of a role than she does when Oberdorf is actually there, especially in the attack, because I do think Oberdorf brings so much. But I do like this replacement. I actually think it's going to be more defensive. I think it's going to be a little bit more solid in that way and then allow everybody else to get forward. But it's going to be more of a linchpin to have them solid, to not be broken down so much in that sixth position. But we'll see. I don't know. So much change up.
Germany's in a tough group. They're in Group B along with the United States and Australia, as well as Zambia. And there's some news out of Zambia. Their women's national team head coach, Bruce Mwape, has been banned from private contact with his players at the Olympics. This comes in the midst of an ongoing investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct against him. A few instances that occurred in New Zealand and Australia last summer at the Women's World Cup. The International Olympic Committee has granted Mwape a visa to enter France with very strict conditions, including no private contact with any of the players, and any one-on-one meetings must be conducted in an open space. Initially, his visa was denied as France laws prohibit visas from being issued to people under investigations for sexual crimes. However, the SAZ, Football Association of Zambia, insisted it was too late to replace him and were ultimately able to obtain a visa for the Copper Queens head coach. Darian, as a player, knowing that a coach under investigation is still going to be there, how does that affect you?
It's sick. I mean, in what workspace is your boss under investigation for sexual misconduct and you're still required to work with them under limitations where they're basically babysat to not be one-on-one with you? This is still a person that can dictate your playing time, how well your team is organized going into games, how safe you feel even going into a room with them. I think it's disgusting. I wish that the Zambian Federation did better. It's not too late. You could have replaced him long ago. This is from 2022, I believe, that this has been ongoing, and it's really disappointing. I feel bad for the players because this is a moment where we should be talking about how incredible this team is and how they're going to build on the last Olympics, and the stars that are going to come out of this, what this visibility does for this African nation. And we're talking about a coach involved in sexual misconduct that is still there.
And the accusations first raised in 2022.
Right.
It's been long.
It's disgusting.
Like, I understand the need to do a thorough investigation, but coercion aside, which is absolutely problematic enough, when you are in the position of making an easier decision of just having removed him and implementing an interim without interrupting a squad in a tournament that's going to be significant in these players' lives, them not having to worry about that extra thing is just such a small ask. The alternative being you're now dealing with an intermediary with a coach that you can't be left alone with, which that already alone, that concept weighs heavily.
It's crazy that we're even talking about this. It's mind-blowing that it's a thing, and I feel really bad for the players. This should be a highlight of their careers going to the Olympics, but it's blighted by a crappy coach, in my opinion, a crappy human being if you're being investigated for this for how long? And still able to go.
And it reflects poorly on the federation that they're 100%. Like, oh, we can't replace him. We're just going to keep sending him, and you can't be alone with players. What?
Yeah. It's gross.
It's very odd. It's very odd. As the story continues to unfold and any other news from the Olympics, of course, we'll keep you updated right here on Attacking Third. But the Olympics, they kick off in 3 days with the women's football tournament. 12 teams, 3 podiums, and 1 gold medal. We're telling you everything when we get back. Welcome back to Attacking Third. The Olympics group stage kicks off July 25th as we take a look at Group A. 12 teams in 3 groups with the top teams in each group plus the 2 best third-place teams advancing to the quarterfinal on August 3rd, the semifinal August 6th, bronze medal match August 9th, and the gold medal match August 10th. The host nation, France, are in Group A with Canada, Colombia, and New Zealand. We are going to break down every single team heading to Paris to compete in the Olympics and tell you everything you need to know about every single nation. We start with France, the host nation. They are entering their 3rd Olympics, and they're the hosts this time. Darian, how much pressure is on Les Bleus to compete?
There's a lot of pressure, knowing that it's Hervé Renard's last tournament with them before he departs. I think there's immense pressure. I mean, you're hosting the frigging Olympics. You have a stellar team. We've been very critical that they never really show all the way out in major tournaments for how stacked they are. I mean, just looking at the pictures of these players who play for most of the dominant teams in Europe, some in the NWSL, but mostly in Europe, it's crazy to think that they haven't won a major tournament like this in a long time. So there's a lot of pressure, but I really hope that they can finally turn this around for them in this Olympics, because the talent that they have is immense, and they just need to start scoring goals. That's their biggest issue. They get to all of these positions. They're playing all of these high caliber teams. They look good. They just don't finish. But then they have some wonder goals, but it's still just not enough. It's always a little bit too late. So I hope that they can turn it around, because, I mean, they just have so many star players. They deserve it.
What is going to be the it factor for France?
One, scoring goals, as Darian pointed out. I think maybe some are magic, since she's France's all-time leading goal scorer, men or women, that she's going to have to start cranking things out. Playing more cohesively, for starters, but I also think that they've got to be back with a vengeance, because they weren't part of the 2020 Olympics. They've never medaled. Like, for the roster that they have, especially the younger ones, some of the omissions that were part of Diak's former squad, like Mac being part of this, I think that this is their opportunity, for sure.
Is there a player, Darian, that, I mean, you said they need to score goals, so who? Who does the pressure fall on?
Oh, I mean, it falls on everybody, but I'd say Maria Antoinette Katoto. She's back, she's healthy, she's in form, she is scoring right now, so she needs to take this in stride and just stay hungry for goals. But actually a player for me that's kind of an unsung hero for France is Karchaoui. I think she's one of the best outside backs in the world, and when she's having a good game and she's involved in the attack and she's able to move into the midfield, take shots from range, her crossing ability is insane. They are a better team when she's on the ball. So for me, if she's having a good game, a good tournament, they can get really far.
Sandy Baltimore's also really been in form, so I really need her. She's great at even just getting things together to progress play and just assist. So even if she's not scoring goals, I hope she's setting them up for success, because it's kind of frustrating when you look at the squad because they're so good. And not just on paper, but individually, if they can get them to sort of gel and function, goal fest.
Goals, we'll see. France will have to take on a Colombian side who is entering their third Olympics, and Colombia coming off of a historic Women's World Cup last summer in which they went undefeated in their group stage play. They advanced to the quarterfinal and ultimately fell to England. But for Colombia, Christine, what are the expectations for this group?
I think the expectations are getting high only because they've shown that they can perform at a high level and they have the talent. I think that all eyes are going to be on Linda Caicedo once again, and they should be. I think that they definitely have probably the best program they've had in years, and I think that they're only going to continue to grow. This is just, their next opportunity to shine on a world level.
They have Mayra Ramirez, Carlin Usme, Lacey Santos. This is a yacked team, too, and also a really feisty team. We've seen, especially during the W Gold Cup, that was where I really got to see the identity of Colombia come out. I mean, World Cup, too, but where it was consistent. And they were missing some key players, and it's just been so fun to watch them develop as a team and really make a name for themselves and how effective they score goals. That's not something I'm worried about. It's more on the defensive side where I wonder if they can keep up with other teams' attacking prowess. I'm not so sure, but it will be fun to watch. I mean, Linda Caicedo, when she's in form, she's in form. She can lead this team, but we'll see on the defensive side.
What do you think? Just adopt the score more goals approach to defense?
Pull Kansas City and just outscore whoever you're playing against. You can concede. We'll just score more.
Linda Caicedo double hattie.
That makes for entertaining matches. Colombia takes on France in match day 1, but the other match in Group A is Canada against New Zealand. Let's start with Canada. Reigning gold medalists, they are headed to their 5th consecutive Olympics. The first time in Tokyo, it was just a few months after head coach Bev Friesman had taken over, and Canada soared to the top of the podium, winning gold. Now they look to repeat. Christine, what is going to be the factor for Canada to get gold again?
I feel like the occasion is upon them, where they know that this is important. Obviously, it's much more difficult to repeat than win the first time, but they've tasted gold. They're going to want to do that again. They have to do this now without Sink, though, where they did have her last Olympics, which she makes a massive difference no matter what age you have her at. I think Herrera is going to have to step up. Grosso, right?
Yeah,
did I just
Grosso,
blank?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no.
Combining players.
I'm having a dizzy spell.
No, it has been a minute, right, since Tokyo in 2021. Darian, how has Canada changed since then?
We got a new formation. They're keeping possession. It's not, what did we call it? Cold oatmeal ball? Kickball. I mean, that game is a cold oatmeal football. That's what it was. That game can be effective, and it's nice to have that in your arsenal for when, you know what, we're not able to break this team down in our possession. Let's just full on send it and send numbers forward, and let's see what we can do. We've seen them build. I think Adriana Leon is a player that's been really, really good for them this last year, that's found her form with the national team. So I hope we see them keep building on this football style they're playing. Yeah. But they've got some weapons. I think that they'll be effective. But when you have a big target on your back,
Jessie Fleming.
yeah, Jessie Fleming for sure. But when you have a big target on your back, you're the reigning gold medalist. Everybody's coming in to bring their A game against you, even more so than I think any other team. So they're really going to have to be locked tight defensively, which I think they're biggest weakness is their own mistakes they make in the back line is where teams capitalize on them. It's going to be fun to watch. I want to see how they've built from the W Gold Cup and some of the friendlies we've seen.
Canada has to be airtight on their mental lapses. They cannot give up for even a second, especially in their first match of the Olympics against New Zealand, headed to their 5th consecutive Olympics. What are your expectations for New Zealand, Darian?
It's going to be a slug match. I don't foresee New Zealand being amazing at this World Cup, the Olympics. I think that watching the World Cup, they still have a lot that they need to build on. We've seen them form a bit of an identity, gain some confidence, show that they can compete. I don't know if they can medal. I'm not confident in that, but I do think they can play spoiler to some teams and cause some losses, because I do think they can be difficult to break down. They're going to maybe sit in a mid to low block and then hit you on counters and set pieces, and they could play spoiler potentially.
Yeah. I feel like with New Zealand, it's kind of interesting how you have Ali Riley playing in her 5th Olympics, and then you have Millie Clegg, who's now 18 years old, her debut, where you have this huge shift in like extreme youth and then extreme veterans that are on this squad. So they seem to be a team that will be in transition. But I think they're probably going to have not the easiest go in this group.
In transition, New Zealand just has to be careful of getting stretched, especially in between the lines, because when you look at who's in their group with Canada, Colombia, and France, if they see those gaps and those holes, if New Zealand gives them, it's going to be one-way traffic for those teams in Group A. We'll see. It all kicks off on Thursday, but we've got Group B action that we are going to preview for you next. USA, Zambia, Germany, Australia. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Attacking Third, presented by CarMax, the way car buying should be. Group B in Paris, Australia, Germany, United States, and Zambia. A tough group for the United States. We start with them, a side that's heading to their 8th consecutive Olympics. They've medaled in 6 of their 7 appearances. However, their last 2, or 2016 in Rio, they got 5th, and in 2020 in Tokyo, they were both not in the gold medal match. For the United States, Darian, what are their realistic expectations heading into Paris?
In my opinion, they have to medal. Do I think they're going to get gold? It's plausible. But I'm not that confident defensively. I don't think we've been asked enough questions leading into this tournament to really know what that's going to look like. We saw U.S. In the World Cup look exposed on set pieces and transition. And I don't know if we've gotten enough of a test from high quality teams going into this to really see how much we've improved. And if I were an opponent looking at the U.S., I'm thinking, send it over the left side, the left back goes high, and that's how we're going to score goals. So maybe the U.S. will be in form going into these games, because we saw them struggling to score. And once you score one, I think it's just going to keep coming, especially with the front line that we have. But yeah, the big question marks defensively against this group is going to be tough.
Christine, do they medal?
I do think they medal. I don't quite know where yet. I think I echo the same thing that Darian said, in that even if you look back at World Cup, yes, different coach. What we've seen more recently with these friendlies is they're not clinical. They're not able to finish. And I worry that that will be an issue going forward, because we've already seen that they have a really hell of a time trying to break down a low block. And I worry that that should be, technically, if you've been watching, would be the default response for a team that can't necessarily get one over on them.
I don't think everyone's going to play in a low block against the U.S., though.
I don't think that's
These
true.
teams are much better than who they've been playing against.
I think that you kind of have them exposed where you know what will be a big challenge for them. And if they're already having trouble getting shots on target, not necessarily shots off, because we see that is not an issue. If you need to throw a wrench in it, that could be, your backup plan in
Lisa,
your pocket.
do you think they medal?
I think they get to a medal match.
Ooh,
I like that. That's
I'm being realistic.
That was a good way to put that.
I think they make it to either a bronze medal match, maybe gold medal match. I think it's going to depend on the path that they have to take to get out of their group. If they win their group, it's a much harder path. I don't know how realistic it is for USA to top this group with Germany, Australia, and
Spain?
Zambia. Yes.
If eventually down the road would be a massive, would be a massive challenge, I think, for
which
this
is
side.
really tough. So considering we all think they could medal, what is considered a good result, would you say, for U.S. soccer and Emma Hayes at her first international tournament?
Are we talking contextually, like as looking at the holistic of like what the U.S. women's side is?
Yes.
I would say for the public, gold. They need to gold. I think anything less than that is going to be not acceptable. Right. It's going to be, oh, well, they failed. Now, do I hold that opinion? I think that I would accept silver, but I think that what we're used to is this legacy of winning, and everybody's looking for this new, young, scrappy, talented team under Emma Hayes to outperform what was previously there. And so I think that the expectations are wildly high.
I agree. They're, exponentially high. I think a little unrealistic. People are freaking out that they couldn't score in the last matchup and the friendlies leading up to this, so there wasn't more. I think we're seeing them develop into the team that they're going to be. I don't think that they're at that yet. This is going to propel them into that. I do see maybe a bronze.
Yeah, we'll see. Emma Hayes, the head coach for the United States women's national team, did talk about how fans have unrealistic expectations of this group, and she's trying to steer their expectations towards reality for what could happen. That means the 22 players that she is taking with her. Don't worry, we will have a full United States versus Zambia preview on our next show, so don't miss that. But elsewhere in Group B, Germany, this is their 6th Olympics. They have won gold in 2016, but they missed out on Tokyo Olympics, and now Germany back in the mix. How much has changed, Christine, for Germany since 2016, the last time that they medaled?
Oh, a lot for sure. But I think they are still the same scrappy German side that is absolutely well-performing, well-oiled. They know what they have to do. They still have strength in Nuskin and Pop, Buhl, like Feli Rausch. Like, they have a lot of talent on that squad, and they are very organized.
What's going to be the biggest hurdle for Germany, Darian?
Playing a full 90-minute game, watching friendlies leading up to us, watch them qualifying for tournaments, for Euros. It's been tough because they don't start games out well. It takes them until about the 50th, 60th minute to finally look like the side that we expect to see. Other teams are going to come out knowing that and hit hard. So seeing if Germany can really put together a performance from the first minute on is going to be interesting. And with the injuries they have with Oberdorf, I know we keep talking about her, but she really is the linchpin for this team. I think it's going to be difficult for them if they really don't start games out hot and heavy.
Every single nation is dealing with injuries, but Germany seems to be the biggest hit to their roster and their style of play that they were hoping to compete in, especially in this group stage. Meanwhile, Australia, they are also in this Group B. This is their 3rd straight Olympics. Back in Tokyo 2020, Australia finished 4th. They fell to the United States in that bronze medal match, but the biggest difference this time around, Australia is without all-time leading goal scorer forward Sam Kerr, who is still recovering from her ACL injury in January. Christine, how much does Kerr's absence hurt Australia?
A ton. I feel like Sam Kerr is a once-in-a-lifetime player, right? You're not going to get, in the same way that Germany will struggle without Oberdorf, Australia are not fully Australia without Sam Kerr. And that's not a slight to them. It's just that she is extraordinary in every way.
What do they lose without her?
Goal scoring, clinical finishing, some even playmaking, creativity, a lot.
She is a player to me that no matter what team she's on, which she's proven it when she was a Sky Blue, she could score a goal out of nothing. She creates something out of absolutely nothing. So when things aren't going right, when your style of play, your tactics aren't fully coming together, maybe a team's in a low block where you don't have a lot of possession, she's a player that you can rely on to make something happen.
Without her, what does Australia rely on now?
Their team play. I don't know if there's not a same individual, I think, that can bring what Sam Kerr brings, but I think the World Cup proved, and a few of their friendlies that we've watched, that they can actually come together and play as a team, break teams down. There's a variety of players that can score and that have really developed into veterans for this team. But it's going to be interesting. I do think they rely a lot on Sam Kerr, which every team she's played for does.
It's going to be tricky for Australia in this group. We'll see, though, because there's also Zambia, who is headed to their second consecutive Olympics in Tokyo. They unfortunately didn't get out of the group stage. However, they're coming off of their first Women's World Cup appearance where they finished 3rd in the group. How can Zambia surprise their group members, Darian?
All gas! Attack, attack, attack. I think this is going to be really fun to watch them play in this group because they have such attacking threat defensively. Obviously, that's their weakest position. The organization, to me, isn't there. Just seeing them play, seeing how the tactics aren't necessarily fully set for them to lock teams out of scoring on them, but they're going to score a lot of goals. I mean, they have Nanji, Banda, both unstoppable players who just kind of flick defenders off of them left and right. It's going to be fun to watch teams try to shut those two down.
Entertaining football to come from them for sure. When we think about Barbara Banda being on an absolute tear in the NWSL with Orlando Pride, and now she gets to compete internationally, Christine, what do you think is the game plan in terms of getting Barbara Banda the ball? How does Zambia put Banda in the best position to succeed?
I don't know, have like 10 other players willing to feed her? No, yeah. But realistically, Rachel Kunananji and Banda together are absolutely terrifying. Obviously, they have an entire rest of the squad that they'll be playing with. It's not like they're the only two players on the pitch. But I think that they are going to be like full weight behind the attack. So I think that she will be supported. But even if she's not, we've seen what Banda can do all on her own.
Yeah.
That's not to say she needs to put this entire game on her back, but I'm sure she'd love to. She's powerful and graceful. She's calculated, she's smart, she's great at reading just where somebody's going to go. And she's also so good at sending you out for lunch. And it's like so disrespectful, but it's so much fun to watch.
Oh, well, it's so fun to watch her. So I want to know, just real quickly, when Zambia plays the United States and then they take on Australia and then they play Germany, how many goals does Banda get in the group stage? Just a fun guess.
8.
Oh, I'll say 4.
I like that. That's absolutely hilarious. We'll see. She takes on the United States first, and the U.S. has to try to stop her. We will preview more of U.S. versus Zambia in our next show, but don't go anywhere. We've got Group C with world champion Spain. We're telling you everything you need to know next. In Paris, Group C will be one to watch. Woof. Look at this powerhouse stacked group. Brazil, Japan, Nigeria, and Spain all looking to advance out of the group and ultimately make their way to a trophy at the top of the podium. Darian, you're shaking your head here. Group of death? Yes? No? How terrifying.
Group of death. It's hard to even try to predict who's going to come out of that, but that is going to be such a fun group. Lots of goals, really defined styles of play from each of these teams. All of them love possession. Well, sans Nigeria, but I think that they can show that they can play spoiler to them. I don't know if Nigeria will make it out of this group. I do think they can cause problems. But what a tough group. Brazil wanting it for Marta. Japan wanting vengeance from the World Cup where they looked so good. Spain, the reigning World Cup champions. I mean, this is going to be such a fun group to watch.
Absolutely entertaining and chaotic to come from this. Let's start with Spain, the reigning world champions. This is their first ever Olympic Games.
Just crazy to say.
Yeah. Crazy. It's the way that the UEFA qualifying works. They've never been able to qualify before, but now they head to Paris with a huge target on their back. Only 6 changes from last summer's World Cup winning roster. How does Spain, Christine, meet the world's expectations to win gold?
I feel like they have been so good and so successful in every tournament we've seen them, and each individual player has been performing at the top level for their clubs that it would be hard. I feel like the expectations are high, but they're warranted. You've got Ballon d'Or Bonmati to contend with, and that's more than enough, but they have an absolutely stacked roster. It's absolutely insane. Alexia Putellas, Bonmati, Paredes, they're lethal, right? Like they have a lot of firepower and they're just very regimented at this point.
So what could be the Achilles heel of Spain?
They concede. I mean,
I said could be.
Couldn't have been more of an obvious answer I just gave you. But the defensive part for me, where they get so overconfident on the ball that they send so many numbers forward that they concede some silly goals that should be shut down earlier on the pitch. We've seen this in the friendlies leading up to the Olympics. Last World Cup, they lost to Japan. A lot of that on their own mistakes.
Yeah. Capitalize on the errors.
Capitalizing on errors. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust defensively, because this is not an easy tournament. There's no easy games in this tournament where you're thinking, oh, this can be kind of a blowout, especially in this group. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust and maybe stay a little bit more safe, pragmatic in that back line as opposed to sending everybody up high at the half.
Being as this is Spain's first Olympics and there is such a quick turnaround between the group stage and there's only 12 teams, from a logistical standpoint, how does Spain management and scouting and the players approach this tournament than they would have a World Cup?
You have to be a little bit more serious about who's going to be able to exploit you, in my opinion. Like I said, there's not an easy game. There's not as much leeway between the matches where you have time to recover, you have time to kind of readjust, recalibrate. It's go, go, go. It's the freaking Olympics. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that, how they try to shut down the likes of Brazil, Nigeria, Japan. And keep adjusting, because once you spot a weakness, what's fun about this is when you see a team that has a weakness, the next game's coming quickly. How are you able to do this without much training time in that short amount of time to try to fix the issues at hand? But I don't know.
And ultimately capitalize on the mistakes you see from your opposition in the group stage. Well, Spain will take on Japan first, and Japan are headed to their second consecutive Olympics. They're coming off a World Cup in which they performed well, defeating Spain 4-0 before ultimately being knocked out by Sweden in the quarterfinals. And they take on Spain in the opening group stage match. Christine, what redemption is Japan looking for?
Oh, Japan have been here before. They have won World Cups. They know what they're doing. They are always very well organized in their play, which is just remarkable. Very good about how they move as a team. They're more than capable of beating big teams, and they've shown that in the past. I think Spain is just an example, but they also made it into the knockouts, the quarterfinals with Sweden, who, only really beat them due to their prowess and set pieces. So they're decent defensively. They just need to score goals.
Being in such a tough group, Darian, do you foresee Japan getting out of this group?
I actually do. I think Spain and Japan are going to get out of this group. Japan is so disciplined. I think they have a really defined style of play that is so hard for other teams to compete against and to break down unless it's on set pieces. The weaknesses of each team are so interesting, and Japan, every time that you think that they're going to win, they're susceptible to set pieces, and I think it's a physicality factor that they just cannot match.
And just size.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to watch, but they have such a beautiful style of play. I don't think that Brazil and Nigeria are going to be able to stop them. I think Spain's going to give them the biggest pushback. So yeah, those are my two making it out of the group.
Ooh, and that's the first match we get in this group. Japan and Spain.
Yes.
Oh, I'm excited
I don't know, man.
for that one.
I have high hopes for Brazil a little bit. I really do.
Yeah? Okay, let's talk about Brazil. This is a side that has participated in every single Olympics, every single competition. So this is their 8th time heading to an Olympics. However, they have gotten better since the World Cup. They didn't make it out of the group stage last summer, but in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup, Brazil looked pretty good. What has changed, Christine, for Brazil to prepare themselves for this Olympics? You said they're getting out of the group.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's lofty that I want them to get out of the group. I just feel like they've been knocking at the door for so long, and you have tons of talent. You have Carlin back in the mix, which is wonderful because we haven't seen her for regular season, which is kind of wild. We have Marta's final, presumably Olympics, and it would be wonderful to see her go out on top. But that aside, like, they play so well together. It really is like joga bonito, and you hope to see that at the Olympics.
What style of play do you expect to see from Brazil in Paris?
Enjoying the ball, a lot of beautiful creativity, 1v1 artists, bold shots being taken. My biggest red flag about Brazil is the goalkeeping position. I think we've saw some really unorthodox things in the W Gold Cup.
Oh, yeah.
And it ended up working out for them. A really aggressive goalkeeper, high off of her line, looking to link play. But I don't know if this is the tournament where you can get away with being a little bit outlandish from the back line, which we've seen Brazil do. Yes, I think they have immense attack. Yes, Marta, I would love for them to advance, do it for Marta, her last Olympics, which is so sad to say. But they're in the toughest group of the tournament. I don't see it happening.
The sprinkle of magic dust that Brazil has is for Marta.
Yeah.
And having the group band together around her, the fact that she is going to be there and help lift them, be a leader, you never know what that magic dust can do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Marta
crazy things.
is not just a super talented player. Marta is an idea at this point. And so we'll see if that
when you have something to rally around, it really can unite a group. Also in this group is Nigeria. They've missed out on the last 2 Olympics, but they're back for their 4th try at a podium. Last summer, just a year ago, they advanced to the round of 16 in New Zealand and Australia for the World Cup before they fell to England on penalties. Darian, what are your expectations for Nigeria?
Seeing them build upon what we saw at the World Cup, I mean, they could have beat England. This is not an easy team to take down. I think they can be solid defensively. They do struggle in scoring goals, I think, because they are so defensive. They want to lock teams out, which works, but you're not going to advance unless you score. So seeing them maybe play a little bit riskier football is going to be fun to see. They have really creative, fast, physical, technical players on their team. I want to see them get into the attack a little bit more, challenge teams, and then be really Loctite defensively. I don't know if we'll see that. I don't have the utmost confidence, although I wish I did. But it's going to be interesting. I think they could play spoiler to one of these teams in a match.
How could they disrupt other teams' play?
I don't know. I think they'll be relying heavily, obviously, like on transition, trying to break up. I don't see them going out there and being like, let's aggressively press and attack. But with that being said, they're also Africa's most successful women's team. So they're fun to watch at the very least. I think they've got their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
But I think that they're always fun to watch.
Nigeria can disrupt the goal scoring. Like, that's a factor in the rankings for these groups and how you get out of them. Of course, the top 2, but the best 3rd place team, Nigeria could play spoiler in just sitting back and being a defensive side that doesn't allow Spain to run up. Yeah, they could not allow Japan or Spain to run up the score, and that changes the outcome of the group and who ultimately gets out, who's first, who's second, and that all plays a factor into the seeding once we get to the knockout rounds of the Olympics. Woo! It's fun. I love previewing this. We've got sleeper picks, golden boot, everything for you coming up on next week's show. But Sandra Herrera joins us next to give us all of her hot takes about the Olympics. Welcome back to Attacking Third. We are pleased to bring in our good friend Sandra Herrera to keep chatting about the Olympics with us. Sandra, we've missed you. How are you doing?
So glad to be back. I have missed you all so much. I'll just admit it. I'm fully codependent on A3. Happy to be back.
Mama's been a rolling stone. We've missed you.
We have missed you so much. But good thing you're back just in time to give us all your hot takes for the Olympics. When we look at the 12 nations competing, who is your dark horse in this Paris Olympics?
I am so amped for the Olympics. It's finally here. We're in Olympics week. Here we go. I was riding with them during the World Cup, and I'm not stopping during the Olympics. I'm sticking with Colombia to maybe be a little bit of that dark horse energy again during this Olympics. I like the group that they're drawn into. I think they are going up against any team in the group where they can kind of play a little bit of spoiler themselves. I like the roster that they've got going into this group as well. I think we're obviously all high on Linda Caicedo and Mayra Ramirez, but I'm also equally as high on their players on the back line as well. I expect Manuela Vanegas to maybe have a little bit of an impact for this team during their group as well. So keep your eyes on Colombia.
I like the Colombia shout, and I somehow knew you were going to say that. I kind of mouthed it as you threw it out there. Who do you think is going to go home with gold from this tournament, though?
Yeah, maybe this one's not as hot as some others, but I don't think we can, disrespect Spain and everything they've been putting together over the course of their last cycle and leading up to this Olympics. They're obvious favorites to go for gold during this tournament as well. I think they're in very, very good form, despite the maybe one small blip along the way in 2024 against the Czech Republic, where they had that loss. Other than that, they have won every other game that they've had in 2024, and they are armed with the world's best player in Bon Mati. So watch out for Spain.
I mean, first off, I would love for somebody to come rock up and disrespect Spain. I invite the opportunity. I want some spicy football, but I digress. Who's your pick for Golden Boot?
Yeah, I'm still going to stick with Spain. I'm sorry, I'm not going to rock them just yet. Maybe during when the tournament gets going, Cupo, but I'm going to stick with Spain as well. I have to keep, a shout out to Salma Parajuelo. So I think the 20-year-old obviously burst onto the scene with this team during that 2023 World Cup, and she's been cutting it up with Barcelona as well. Second on the team, just one goal shy short of leading the team. We're tying with Carolyn Graham-Hansen in Barcelona, but I think maybe this could be a peculiar pick because some folks might know that she hasn't necessarily scored with the national team since, I believe, about April. So for me, that just means that she's due for another breakout in a major international tournament. So I'm going to go with her for Golden Boot.
High expectations on the 20-year-old from you, Sandra. I like that. We'll see. I'll be cheering for Parajuelo just so you can get your pick right, bud. That's what we do here, teammates. But this got us thinking about Olympics past and all the fun things that have happened. So I want to know from you, top 3 moments from women's Olympic football tournament history.
I think it was tough for me to narrow it down to 3, but at the same time, taking a look at how long the tournament has been involved in the Olympics, it's only been around since 1996. So maybe not so surprisingly, there's going to be a few USA picks on this one. So when it came down to 3, I'm going to go with number 3 as the 2012 semifinal against USA and Canada. At number 2, I'm going to keep it with CONCACAF and give a special shout out to Canada winning gold at the Tokyo Olympics. And then for number 1, for me, had to go with the very iconic moment in 1996 where USA brought home the gold.
Impressive play from Canada. So I want to know why you picked 2 matches against Canada-USA. What was the difference between those 2 matches for you?
Look, I think when we look at the 8 Olympic tournaments for women's football over the course of its history, USA has been a significant part of those. They got 4 gold medals out of the 8 opportunities here. And I think when you look at the other winners in Germany and Norway, I have nothing but respect for our siblings to the north. And I think we're going to be talking about Canada's gold medal win for a while. I think we still talk about it now and lead up into this current cycle because of how they played and how they were able to achieve that gold medal. Frustrating, I think, for a lot of people, maybe an agonizing struggle ball. Maybe they weren't happy to see that type of football being played all the way to a gold medal, but Canada made it work for them. So had to give them a special shout out. And obviously, with just 3 opportunities to choose top moments, had to go with USA to kind of start it off and cap it off. I think 2012 is a very special moment for a lot of fans, kind of finding their arrival and their way to U.S. soccer. But I think if we've been celebrating that 1999 World Cup team in particular, and just coming off of this recent international window, 1999 was the definitive moment to say that U.S. soccer for women has officially arrived. But 1996 for me was absolutely the prequel, and we have to give that as much honor as possible.
Sandra, I love that. I mean, taking a trip with you down memory lane, looking at all the past Olympics, it's been fun. But thank you so much. We appreciate it and always love your insight and picks.
Happy to be back.
I love it. Okay, well, we didn't get to do our sleeper picks, our golden boot, our winner for the gold medal. We'll do that later this week on our show on Wednesday at 4 p.m. We're going to preview USA, Zambia. We're going to give all of our hot takes for the Olympics. Don't worry. And we will also be going live on youtube.com/attacking3rd after every single United States women's national team match. So you hear our reactions and results immediately following the match. This episode has been brought to you by CarMax, the way car buying should be. See you Wednesday.